Hello and welcome to my next podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. Thank you for finding me wherever you are in the world. I really appreciate a lot of the new subscribers and people that take the time to reach out to me via Instagram and people that leave comments. It really means a lot to me. I am out here sharing my knowledge and a lot of the wisdom and lessons that I have acquired from all of the struggles and all of the parts of my journey here. And today I had a really heavy one that I wanted to bring up. So this particular podcast is more designed for gay men like myself. So if you're out there and you are not a gay man and you're not living in the gay culture, these days I call it cult, as we know the first word of the word culture is culture, then you may not know anything about this. This might all be kind of a shock to you. Maybe it's not. So I will try and explain this in a way that is really kind of like long story short version, so we can get to the crux of it and you can understand where I'm coming from. And I hope that you find this insightful. And today I thought I would share some knowledge or share my viewpoint on daddy culture, gay culture, daddy culture, kink culture, that type of thing. I'm going to unpack this a little bit. So if you are a gay man and you're out there in a modern world these days in 2024, then you will absolutely know what I am talking about. And I wanted to share with you this because it's something that has really affected me, and it still affects me to this day, being not a part of it, but being involved in the gay world. For those of you that don't get it, when I say gay world, I am talking about a subculture or an underground world, which is still primarily where gay culture exists. And some people might get offended by that, but I'm being very honest here. If you go onto any of these platforms that usually exist out now, mostly that's where gay culture is gone. As a lot of gay bars and gay places are now gone now, you'll find that really all that's left in the modern world is Grindr, Scruff, Daddy Hunt, Howler, Whistler, and so on and so forth. It's all kind of in the ether of a hookup app. So that's what I'm referring to in gay culture now. And a lot of these profiles, as you will know, if you're in it, are all faceless. They're all people that are choosing to engage with you, but they're not showing who they are in exchange. And why is that? Well, because they're hiding. They're hiding for a reason. Whatever that reason is, as we now know, a lot of people just kind of live double agent lives, and have always lived double agent lives behind their family's back. And I will be unpacking that a little bit today. And there's more of that now than there is ever before, which is quite unsettling, really, as we're in 2024. And being gay was supposed to be quite normalized, but you'll see now what's happened is with a play on breaking down what being gay is. It's almost like the word gay is now outlawed. It's more like we've moved on to a word called queer. Now, I completely reject this word, and I have a lot of problems around this word. I want to make this very clear to you that queer is not a sexual identity. Being homosexual is a sexual identity, okay? Queer was a term that was used in a derogatory term that would be used to belittle a gay man, like being called a fag or a queer. These are usually words that someone would have seen before they saw a baseball bat and they were killed. So a lot of people have tried to reclaim this term, and now this kind of umbrella term is kind of really crossed lines and tried to bleed over, as we see a lot of language is now being changed to bring in a very sick and pernicious agenda. And I will get onto that at some point. But for the point of this podcast specifically, I'm going to be looking at daddy culture. Now, growing up gay and coming out, it's really important to understand that having role models and having father figures or having people, men in your life that are paternal in a way, that have an authoritarian impact on you, really is the building blocks for your consciousness and being able to go out into the world and go out into life and be able to build a life, much like a bunch of kind of blocks. I guess I'm just putting this really simply. The stronger the foundation of those blocks, the higher the stack of blocks can go. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. So the general summary of it is gay men live a very, very complex and complicated life. Okay, and I'm really sharing that with you because a lot of the time you will see with gay men the absence of a father, and no parent really knows, particularly back 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, how to deal with a gay son. They have no idea how to relate to that. So gay kids don't have a normal childhood in that conventional sense. They don't have a rites of passage. And generally what we find here is there is no consistency with that in their development. So what I'm saying here is a lot of gay men have daddy issues, or they have some kind of absence of a presence that symbolizes what a father is, which is strength, practical, logical thinking. It symbolizes direction. And the father figure is like kind of like the knife that slices through distractions and ambivalence and dissolves stupid connections of things that are childish, to kind of help you go through that rites of passage as an adult. So when that doesn't take place for a young gay man, he really kind of comes into the gay world. He wants to kind of fit in. And that in there is really where a lot of the indoctrination begins. They're looking for a role model, or they're looking for an older person that can help them grow. And so in psychology, this is actually known as something called a downpouring. Now, this is something that happens in humans regardless of whether you're gay or straight, an older person or a leader of the tribe, or someone who is seen as a higher figure of authority, passes down their knowledge, passes down their wisdom, and teaches them how to do things, like how to hunt, how to behave, how to, set an example of behavior that is consistent and shows how to deal and navigate with tasks of life, I guess you can say. And if you would notice and be honest about it, you will see that in the gay world, there is a real lack of any level of consistency. We see it's just completely diluted with distractions, play, everything's very reductive, everything's kind of knocked off course, and really toxic behaviors that were never really kind of, knocked out from the beginning. And so this level of dysfunction enables pathology, and of course, dysfunction equals trauma. And that's why these days in the modern world, we see that dating really doesn't really happen anymore. And we can see that these relationships that people have just simply don't work. They might last for a while, a couple of years at best, and then at some point they will end. And They'll either go into an open relationship where everyone's just able to do whatever they want. And so you know that in a relationship, it is the exclusivity in a relationship that makes it a real relationship. Otherwise, you're just friends that fuck. So you don't actually have a real relationship, you have an arrangement, okay? Or you're just friends, yeah? And so we've even seen at this point now in the gay world that the construct of a relationship in itself has also shifted. So the goalposts have also shifted as well. When we had a fight for gay marriage, and I am all for gay marriage, I was very I'm very supportive of this. We wanted gays to have the same level of legal and status of heterosexual couples, as we see a lot of gay relationship models are based on heterosexual couples for obvious reasons. And that's okay, that's what it is. But what we had was people wanting the sanctity of a marriage under a religious construct, and they all fought for that and wanted it so much. And now that it's happened, we see a massive decline of marriages happening with gays, and to the point where it's barely any at all in my country here in Australia. I've got the statistics here, I can see it now. And we see that open relationships have become this new wave of being. And so it's really interesting that, dismantling the figure of something that it wanted to just match what it wanted to change it to later is kind of like quite unsettling in a way. And it's quite sanctimonious in a way as well. So I'm not going to talk about why modern gay relationships don't work. We know that most gay men's life is a series of, stop, start, are you the one? No, are you the one? Yes, no, stop, start, that ends. And it's kind of like a trauma cycle that goes around in a circle. And, if you think that this level of living in that way of being for long periods of time isn't going to have a very bad effect on you, well, you're joking, okay? It's really bad. So trauma and hurt begets trauma and hurt. Now, going off on a tangent here as I am now, I'm going to come back to the point of this video. The point of this video is you will see that a lot of young gay men are looking for a father figure. They're looking for that downpouring. And that is why we see a lot of gay men that don't have functional relationships with their biological father try and recreate that with an older man in the gay community. And so I'm going to repeat that again. So a lot of gay men that don't get the downpouring, that don't have a stable, functional relationship with their father, they will try and recreate that way of being with, or those methodologies with an older man. So right there is a power imbalance. And I'm going to share that construct with you now. The daddy-son relationship is a dysfunctional relationship. Why? Because it's not based in equality. One is sitting higher than the other. So in life, you go through life and you learn life. You learn how to manage money. You learn how to navigate the world. The world we're living in is changing and moving very quickly. And you've had more time to learn about psychology and how to articulate yourself, and of course, create monetary gain for yourself. Now, I have done a video talking about sexual marketplace value, so I have to bring this into the video here. If you don't know what sexual marketplace value is, it is basically what it is, which is that your SMV will determine how others see you and how others interact with you. Now, a young person is highly desirable, and we know that. We know that in porn search histories, the highest and most searched porn, gay porn, is always twink porn, which is twink, not if you don't know what a twink is, it's a young, usually quite skinny, emaciated, pale, easy to kind of, fun, easy to control kind of thing. It's kind of the archetype of a little boy, shaven, no pubic hair, which is a very pedophilic vibe to it. And we know that that's the most desired thing because that's the high commodity of SMV. So SMV works, just quickly explaining this to you if you don't know, you might need to pause this video because I am sharing a lot here of information and it can be quite heavy for people that don't know this. So your SMV and where someone else's SMV will determine the connection on a level of like picking each other up, finding like, are you attracted to me, blah, et cetera, et cetera. So someone who is wealthier can exchange their SMV in exchange for, so an older person who has acquired money can exchange their SMV for a younger person. Okay, so that's the dynamic that we see here with an older man that can offer protection and money in exchange for a younger son that will be like kind of like creating that dynamic of a father and son in a sexual way. And I hope that made sense. So it's an exchange that is going off here. Now, it's not even up for debate. It just simply is what it is. I'm just breaking down this behavioral way of being because it's in context with what I'm trying to focus on in this podcast, which is the absent father and the lost son, which means that when you don't have a linear line of behavior, you will try and create and exemplify yourself, or you're already exemplified, but you're trying to find a way to create that in your life and manufacture that. So when a young man doesn't have that downpouring of structure and being able to get things done, he has to essentially manifest that or find it in other places outside of his own family, out of his own self, to get that consciousness. And this is where we see in the gay community a lot of grooming. There is so much grooming going on here. And as we see, as society is becoming weaker, we also see that there is a real push for daddy culture, like a daddy who's kind of silver gray with a stash, and he is kind of this archetype of virtue, I guess you could say. And the young man is attracted to that naturally because virtue is the downpouring of what a father figure is, which is being, a persona of a protector, a provider. The father of the archetype of a father is king or chief or someone that settles everything and makes everything okay, because that's the archetype of what masculinity is, which is provider, protector. It's an active energy. Daddy energy, top energy. And so the younger boy is attracted to that by default. And so it's kind of in a really inverted way. We see young men having these partnerships with the daddy. The problem is that as the young boy goes through his rites of passage or, grows, I don't think these days many do go through rites of passage like they did back in the day, but as he matures, he will eventually become a daddy. So all of the pillars that hold that dynamic up will collapse eventually. And so that's really kind of what it is. And that's no secret, that's just obviously common sense. A boy grows into a man and he's obviously, finding a partner. But we see that, these young men are easily groomed because they don't have those years of experience. They don't have that downpouring. And so this is a very predatory area that we see in the gay community. And if I could stand on a stage with a microphone and call out into the audience of gay men, if there was a big stadium in front of me and I had that microphone and I said, honestly, guys, hands up, be honest. How many of you have been raped by an older man? And hands up, go on, be honest, come on. How many of you have been groomed by an older man? You would have pretty much everyone in that fucking stadium standing up or have their hand up if they're just being honest. Okay? All right. So this is what it is. And part of me doing this video here, I know that sounds really hard to hear, but I'm just calling this out as for what it really actually is. It has taken me a long, long time to finally get my head around all of this bullshit and be able to articulate it in a way back to you and report back to you in this podcast about what is really going on here. Okay? So yes, gay culture is predatory. Yes, gay culture is toxic. It is dangerous. Because what you'll find with it is that when the downpouring never occurred in a young man's life, there was no father figure there to implement X, Y, and Z. So every time you're distracted, every time you're fucking around, every time you're playing video games or playing some kind of nonsense or being mean or mistreating someone and being cruel, that father figure wasn't there to say, hey, cut that shit out. Hey, stop that. Do X, Y, and Z. Stop behaving this way. Okay, treat other people with respect. Treat other humans as other humans. You know, that doesn't happen anymore. And so we've got these people that, gay culture in itself is really this elusive looking for something that doesn't exist. Everyone's looking for a 10. Everyone's looking on the app for the next best thing, rather than actually having the skill set and the diligence to build a real, functional, stable, healthy, equal relationship. That doesn't happen anymore. And so also not just in relationships, methodologies and strategies of the father about how to navigate life in situations, how life actually works. You know, someone never sat down with a lot of these gay men and really gave them life-building skills of how to build relationships. That's why gays don't really have strong, stable relationships. They just don't. It's all about distraction and sex, and everything's about play, everything's minimized. Humiliation is hot. Daddy-son play is commodified. This is fucked. And you know that it is. Okay? When there was no downpouring, then, where was the strategies? They just weren't implemented. So in hindsight, looking at it now at 38, a lot of these gay men simply never stood a chance. They had no teacher, and they went out into the world and tried to find it through sex, through trauma bonding. Well, you were conditioned. One of the things that really interests me is that I often find that a lot of gay men, or barely any of them, are spiritual. Barely any of them are spiritual. Now, spirituality is mastery of self, self-development, self-introspection. That simply just isn't there. And I'm not talking about some gays that buy some tarot cards and are into some law of attraction shit. I'm talking about the real thing. That takes shadow work. That takes a looking of yourself, an evaluation of traits that you need. And why? And when we don't have that, we just look at the statistics. Meth is out of hand. Inhalants. Diseases are rampant. Infection everywhere. Shame, devaluation, humiliation. And all of these secondary kind of traits of the mind that are all completely unproductive and distraction-based, where everyone's looking for someone with a big dick to fuck them. There is no virtue there. And that's one of the things that I've noticed about the inversion of a lot of gay culture is, now this is getting heavy now, this is quite dark. I'm just being honest, but you'll see gays idolize the masculine or the father figure of a daddy. And you'll see in a lot of gay culture that it's all based on characters or avatars of dressing up in leather costumes like a biker. And that all started, from Tom of Freeland, and we look back, Tom of Finland, and we look back to kind of the Castro district in San Francisco, leather culture, the daddies. We see a lot of dressing up in costumes that emulate masculinity. But I want to make it clear to you, dressing up in leather doesn't make you masculine. Only acts of virtue and wholesomeness can make masculinity. You can't dress up in a costume that emulates something if you're not yourself living through the archetype of what you're projecting. It doesn't fucking work. It's like everyone's dressing up in some character, but it's not real. Or you'll see in gay culture, you'll also see a lot of drag queens, which is a man that can't get the attention that he wanted as a man. So he creates it in a way where he creates an alternative kind of character of a woman, and then assimilates that behavior and creates an alter ego or an alter character that he lives through to get the need met. And that's fundamentally what drag is. Because in life, and from my many years of really looking at this and understanding this and unpacking this and taking the time to really look at the darkness of this, you'll see that if you're complete in yourself, you don't need to play characters. You don't need to play dress-ups. You just are who you are, and that is enough. You don't need to create this alter, way of being. Because humans, when they have a need, if they can't get the need met directly, they will create a scenario that will get the need met indirectly. And that attention has to come from a different way. So they create an alter, what is it? Like a different character, I guess you could say. And you'll see that in the daddy culture. It's kind of worshipped now. But the problem is it's not real. It's not real. And that's why nothing really in gay culture lasts, because you cannot prolong something if it isn't real. There is a rebellion in the consciousness of gays, a rebellion of authority and a rebellion of the paternal. It's really a rebellion. A lot of it is about rebelling and freedom, sexual freedom. Yeah, freedom. I'm all about freedom, but it's just freedom for freedom's sake. And it's a rebellion against structure as well. And that's what's killing everyone. It's taking you straight to your grave, whether you believe it or not, whether you enter your grave feeling accomplished or not. A lot of gay men's lives are just sex acts. You're not going to get a job from sex. There is nothing to be proud of about just living a life of sex acts and then you grow old and you die. The real value in life is building real connections that are long-lasting and are sustainable. That's the real value here. You can't take anything physical with you when you go, but the real value is living a wholesome life of virtue. Being virtuous is not something you can dress up in. And that's why we have such a rebellion, people rebelling against the medicine that really is connection on a real level. That's what we have here. So if you are rebelling, quieten down your fucking rebellion and try and work on repairing and strengthening your life. Consistency is needed for achievement. Consistency in connection with yourself and with others is what makes anything meaningful. You have to be willing to do the work. Consistency for anything. This is not a dress rehearsal. Life goes really quick. So if you're confused or if you're irrational, start looking at those behaviors and looking at the patterns that you're creating with other people. If you're a gay man, I'm just talking directly to you. You will not find wholesomeness through sex. Sex can enhance intimacy, but sex is not intimacy. Into me, I see. It's just not. We have to be willing to look at ourselves and try and create meaningful connections with people to achieve real connection with a committed mind. And so we have a lot of conflicting messages that are just kind of indoctrinated into gay consciousness. And it's really an act against God. It's an act against any level of structure. And as we know, without any structure, it just collapses. I mean, what is it? And yes, I will say it. It's Luciferic. The worship of self. When man has no God, man makes himself the God. Can't you see this? I know this has been a lot, but this is me sharing some of this knowledge and insight that I've learned and acquired back to you, as I've mentioned. I hope that you've found this eye-opening. I know I've touched on a lot of things. Please reach out to me if this got you in the heart, because I'm only speaking from the heart. You'll see a real lack of principle, virtue, strength, intellect, development, and growth in the gay world. And it's not all their fault. They were just indoctrinated into this bullshit that really leads them nowhere. And you have more value than that. You have more to offer than that. You're not just a sex toy for someone to use and abuse and ghost you. You have value. Don't take the bait. Don't take the bait. A big part of the gay world operates on a very low level of consciousness, not just in intellect, but also in the body and in the mind, in the heart, where it's like it reduces you to your lowest primal form of pleasure and hedonism and pleasure seeking. But we don't build anything from that. We can't. There's no learning, there's no ideas. There's no divinity there. That's not operating from a high place. And that's why we see most gay men are bottoms. And I will share that in another video, but I'm just going to leave it here for this one. I hope that you found this insightful, and please leave a comment below. You can reach out to me on Instagram. I think I'll leave it here. Daddy culture, it is just absolutely insane. And you'll see a lot of predatory men that are just preying on young, vulnerable people that don't know any different. And they are naturally gravitating towards these older men, and the older men are just basically using them. We see a lot of kink, daddy son kink as well in the gay porn, like size difference, little boys with really bigger men. We see like kind of like fun size has become really normalized now. It's fucking sick. Like coming into the room and having family scenarios with your son, and he's got a little teddy bear in the porno and shit. It's fucking sick. And you know it is. And I believe in the next few years, we're going to see a lot of this pedo stuff coming out. And it does take a tremendous amount of truth and honesty and introspection and bravery to make a video like this, because I'm calling it out. All right, I'm going to leave it here. Lots of love to you, lots of truth to you. And I will see you in the next podcast. And thank you for sharing your time with me. It really means a lot to me. You matter and you have value. Find your God. Find your higher self. Okay. Bye.